So there it was about a year and a half ago, just staring at my computer screen on my dashboard for my mortgage, just looking at the number, about $175,000 total. Just wondering to myself, how the heck am I going to do this? Hey, I'm Mike with Roof Money Pro, and I help roofing professionals maximize their careers and build wealth. And I was at a turning point in October of 2023 where I had a decision to make. I was gung-ho and focused on making the most of my career, had been in sales doing roofing for about a little more than a year, and I was ready to make that next jump in building my own financial freedom and creating a real estate portfolio. It's an aspiration of building several rental properties, having those working for me so I didn't have to work so hard for myself to earn income. And then lo and behold, I'm out having a little coffee with my stepmother, and she plants that seed in my head of, hey, why don't you just pay off the house instead of investing? And in my mind, I didn't know how to process that. I already had a plan that I was committed to, and I was working it, and I was excited to take that next jump. But then something happened. That idea just took hold over time, and in about a day or so, I started asking myself, why don't I just pay off the house? Why don't I just get rid of that debt before I make that jump and investing in other properties? That way, if anything were to happen to me, if I were to lose this job or not able to work, at least I could sleep comfortably knowing that the roof over my head was paid for. And that idea started giving me more and more peace of mind. And sooner than later, I decided, you know what, we're going to pivot. I'm not going to stop that goal of investing and building my financial future, but I need to take care of this first. So then I started asking myself the question that I've been asking myself over the last few years is, how am I going to do this? The total amount was $175,000. That was a big chunk. Fortunately, I have no other debt. I don't have any consumer debt, any credit cards. My vehicle is paid for. That's the only thing I have in my name, but it's still a massive amount. And I gave myself a goal, said, how about I pay this off the end of 2024. So it gives me about a year and 2 months. I had some money in the bank. I threw a couple payments at it just to get the ball rolling. And then I made a commitment to myself that I'm going to dedicate every single dollar that I can possibly spare to paying this off in full. So the way I went about it is really just creating a strategy along with brute force. I mean, I've been a fan of income allocation. That is how I manage my own personal finances for the last few years. And basically, it's determining what is the percentage of my total income that I can dedicate to different areas of my life. You know, I've struggled with budgets like many other people. Being very restrictive in every single spending category is kind of tough for me to wrap my head around, but I do well with boundaries. So if I could determine how much money can I allot towards this specific goal, then I can put myself on a program to where I can live off the remainder. And so basically the way I went about that was going through my previous expenses, looking at my spending patterns, just going back to the basics of what is the minimum amount of my income that I could live off of to support my household and my living needs, and then go from there. And then I can really determine, okay, now the difference is the amount that I can put towards this hefty goal that I have. And basically, it took a leap of faith. So again, as I mentioned, I've been in roofing sales for a little more than a year at this point. So I do have a track record. I know the amount of leads that I can typically get in a week. I know my closing percentage. I know my average contract values. So these things gave me confidence that I can at least build a forecast of what my current performance is, but I'm gonna have to stretch myself somewhere where I've never been before. And how it came up to was basically I calculated all of my household expenses. For the year, it came out to about $33,000 or so. That was bare minimum. That was my utilities, my mortgage, my food. Fortunately, I have a company truck, so I didn't really have a whole lot to pay for transportation. But about 33,000 or so was the amount that it took to run my household. And basically, I told myself, or I calculated, I should say, that if I'm able to earn $150,000 a year which I've never done it before at this point, but it was my stretch goal anyway, then I could afford to live off of 25% of that income, which would cover those living expenses. Now, this is a huge leap of faith because in order to do that, I have to perform to my projections and make sure I actually get that amount. Now, in addition to this hefty goal, I also had some other goals in mind. I was also planning on contributing over 10% of my income to charity. So I wanted to give that to the St. Jude Children's Hospital as a part of my other goal of running several marathons throughout the year for the Rock and Roll Marathon Series. Now, along with this, I also do believe that it's important to have some money to spend freely, and I gave myself about 5% to just spend on whatever it is I want. It could be registrations for these events that I want to do, travel, it doesn't matter. That money is there to just zero out the account if I felt like it. I think that's really important to include something, but it's a very insignificant portion of my overall income. So I left it at 5%. So my income allocation went like this. 25% of my income was going to go towards covering my living expenses. Then 10% was going to be going towards charity. 5% was going to be going towards just fun. That would leave 60% of my income that I can put towards my goal of paying off the house. And this is where things took a leap of faith. I had to perform in accordance with my standards week after week for an entire year. And fortunately, it turned out to be a pretty amazing year, one of my best years in sales overall. But as I got further in the year, I realized that I'm chipping away and making great progress, and little by little, I am chopping down this humongous tree. Every single payday, I would look forward to seeing that balance go down more and more and more. But as I got further into the year, I realized, you know what, paying it off in 1 year was maybe a little too ambitious. Even though I am on track to hit my income goals, it's just not quite going to be enough to pay off this house in full. But that didn't deter me. I still just maintained the course. Took it 1 week at a time and just kept telling myself, just stick to the program, stick to the program. And eventually I started getting that to a point where the light at the end of the tunnel was starting to be visible. Once I broke down those barriers, I got it down to past the $100,000 milestone. I started getting really excited, and I was looking forward to just seeing that balance go down. And at the same time, seeing the balance go up with my contributions to charity. That made me feel really good. And then the time came to where basically it's, how do I manage all this? So I'm a big believer in using planners, using spreadsheets. I also use my bank's dashboard just to keep track of my spending patterns so I can make sure I'm tightening things up and checking myself when you start to spend a little too freely in certain areas. Just want to make sure you're maintaining awareness. I live a pretty frugal lifestyle for the most part, so I'm not going to any type of extravagant expenses, but here and there, we still got to travel. So was still able to take several trips throughout the year. We went to Tahoe and did some snowboarding, and then we went to San Diego, which was kind of a twofer because that's where one of the marathons was being ran. And then basically, we started getting closer to the end of the year, and I realized, wow, okay, so I need to readjust my expectations. I am performing, but I'm not going to hit this goal by the end of the year like I thought it was. That's okay. That's just part of it. That's when you readjust expectations and then set a new plan in place. So it was probably about October 2024. I said, you know what, realistically, I'm putting about $8,000 to $10,000 a month towards this. If I continue the course here, I'm probably going to be able to pay off this balance by April to June of next year. And so I readjusted expectations and continued on. Well, lo and behold, of course, there's other factors that come into play. We got tax season, got a little income tax return, and I did really well in my first couple of months in sales of 2025. And basically I got that account balance within a certain range that I had plenty in my savings account to make a decision. Do I continue the course and chip away at this with 60% of my income, or do I go ahead and just pay off that balance? I had about $22,500 left. It was staring at me. And as much as I wanted to delay that gratification, it was in a comfortable, it put me in a position where I could still pay off that balance and have enough in the bank to cover 6 months worth of living expenses. So I decided to take that shot. And I'll tell you what, March 3rd of 2025 was one of the greatest feelings. When I saw that account balance reach zero and get that email that your balance has been paid in full, it was a feeling that I had been working towards for so long to achieve, and I knew it was going to come, and it was finally here. So now I got this little release of lien, and we're about going on a little over a month since I paid it off. And what's the action plan now? Well, it's to continue the course. Now my living expenses are even lower. So now I can afford to live off of 20% of my income instead of 25, and still dedicate the same amount to all my other areas such as charity and fun. But now I'm back on track with my original game plan, which was to continue to invest aggressively in real estate and build up an income producing portfolio. So nothing really much has changed other than I can breathe a little bit easier knowing that this house is paid off. It's a wonderful feeling, and I hope everybody has the opportunity to feel that as well. And that is exactly what I'm here for. So if you like my story and you want to follow me and know more on how to build wealth and stay the course and build an actual true financial system, then please click that link below, follow, subscribe, and stay tuned for more content.